Right, I was experimenting here with a product called Brusho Thickener, and it's like a gel. You're not really meant to use it like I'm using it. You're meant to mix it in with your Brusho, and it makes it a bit like an acrylic paint, not in permanence wise, just in appliance and I feel. So what I did was I painted it where I wanted it on the paper and then sprinkled my brushes on where I wanted it darker or lighter or whatever. Um, and with this one, I think I started off squirting it with a fine mist of water. Yeah, that was me squirting it, but I worked out it were better if I just dripped little bits of water on. And then I'm moving it around with something called a colour shaper. It's silicone tipped artificial brush type of thing. Yeah, you use it for Fimo and stuff like that, clay shaping and whatnot. But you could do it with, I don't know, like a bamboo skewer that you've sanded down or something. Um, I didn't do a drawing first. I didn't do any outlines. I just wanted to do it freehand. I couldn't sleep and I don't know. It was my birthday week and I don't have a very good time around my birthdays. Never have done ever. Not even when I were a little girl. It's nothing to do with getting older or anything like that. I've always just had bad luck or been miserably depressed around my birthday. So I needed something not normal for me to do, something a bit out my comfort zone. And I've always been a bit scared of wet watercolouring and whatnot, and I just thought, blow it, I'm gonna have a go at this. And I'm really chuffed with how it's turned out. As I say, I'm just pouring the Brusho thickener, quite a thickish mix of it, using that to hold the colour crystals in place, and then here I'm just applying a drip of water at a time and moving them around to where I want them, just pushing them and encouraging them to move a little bit. When you're doing like reds and oranges together, it's not so bad, but if you go into a completely different colour, really you could do with letting it dry a bit longer than I did. But as I said, I was in a bit of a strange kind of mood, so I just went for it. Thought, blow it. Yeah. Oh yeah, that's another thing I wanted to say. I'm sorry, I know I've still got unanswered comments. Um, as I say, it's just been my birthday, and I don't know. I tend to hide around that time. I will get round to answering them, and all I can do is apologise. I know I struggle with stuff like that, and it's appreciated. Believe me, it does me good to answer them. So don't think you're doing a favour by not commenting or something. I love talking and getting to know you people. You're brilliant, but I struggle at times, so sorry, and I will answer them. So as I say, I'm just freehanding it and a few winging it. A few bits are a bit skew whiffy, but I really, really like how it turned out. In fact, I've been playing a bit more, haven't I? Which will be coming up, and I'll show you that. A bit more organised with that one though. When you're doing it, if you wet your lightest colour first, or there I got my sleeve in it and dragged a bit all over it, sure. if you wet your lighters, I know it's wet already because you're putting it in the gel, but when you put your water on, if you wet your lighters colours first, move them around and then activate the darkest, then you've got a bit more control over it. And what you saw me doing then was sprinkling the brushos on, but obviously they move and they do what they want to do. But if you raise the paper, you know, if you've got them outside the wet line, if you raise your paper a bit and tap underneath, but bear in mind things are going to start running, when the brushos move, they sort of get attracted to the water. As soon as they hit the water, well, the gel, it sticks there and is a bit more controllable. When I'd finished this, well, that's coming up. I'll talk about what have you got on your head. Are you being a cockerel? He's got his motorbike glove on his head. Is that your comb? And he's playing at cockerels. Sometimes I worry about you, love. You're a strange boy. Shut up, you fool. You scared cat off to death. Yeah, if you make cat's grunting now. If you make it a bit thinner that you want it, especially on something like this with the feathers, and then drag it out, that makes swirls in the colour. I think there I decided I wanted it even wider and put a bit more gel on, and then scrape the colour out. It's fun. It really is fun to play with. I thoroughly enjoyed it, to be honest. I really did. And I'm surprised at how much, especially around its face, how much detail I did get in there. I had a bit of an accident on its neck. That was because I was spraying it, which were a little bit stupid. And there you can see it's a bit yellow because one at Crumbs must have got over that side. I'm dragging a bit of yellow around with it, but that'll be covered in a minute, won't it? The actual colouring of it, oh, how many hours were it? About 5 hours work in total with all the, because people have been saying about, you know, how long stuff takes. I think it was about 5 hours. So for one of my pieces, no, that was the first video. Was 3. That was just the first video of it. Yes, sorry, for one of my pieces it's not bad. It's rather quick, isn't it, really? I mean, I weren't timing it seriously, but it's approximately that length of time. Oh, and what I was doing to speed things up a bit, those spoons, I've colour coded them with a bit of paint, so I know which is my brown, my blue, my red, and I just, you know, green and whatnot, which worked out really good, because anybody who works with this stuff, you know that it little goes a long way. So, and basically what I did was misted around the edges and let it flood out a bit, because I wanted it a wet in wet sort of look. But just before this, I scraped and sprayed it, which I'll tell you about in a minute. Here, I've got very, very, very light India ink, a light brown, and I'm scratching lines on it with a homemade pen, like an ink pen. If anybody wants to see how I make ink pens, give us a shout. I'll do a tutorial on one. And the brown I got progressively darker by adding tiny amounts of darker and darker brown, then a little bit of black at the end. This, I'm just putting the highlight in the eye, and I do a tiny little bit under the eye, and I think that's it, isn't it? Just on its eye, and a little tiny scrape around its eye. There I'm going in with a slightly darker brown, doing scratch marks again, just darker where it would be and whatnot. yeah, as I said, that pen, it's like a proper ink pen. But look at that, and I think that's really sweet. I'm well pleased with that. That's the wet in wet watercolour look I've been after being able to do. I'm really pleased with its face. Um, you should be able to see different degrees of brown outlining. Just or yeah, the I put some blue and green at the bottom, and then picked a bit up on my brush and flicked it around, so it looked like grass, dust. And when I sprayed around the outsides to make it bleed out a bit, there's obviously odd crumbs like that yellow bit on the left hand side. There's a bit more yellow there. That was just stuck on the paper. I couldn't actually see those crumbs, which I'll tell you about in a second. I mean, there's some brown there. Around the comb and the tails just bleed out. Now this is what I did before doing all that. I scraped it down with a piece of plastic to get the yellow. It dries sometimes if you put slightly too much on, it dries with a crust. Look at all that. So I scraped it down, and I put it over the bin, and I flicked it and then brushed it with my hands, and look at all that I noticed on my fingers. So I went over it with a clean tissue and just like brushed it. Then I wet it to see how much there was actually there. And before all that, I'd actually sprayed it with a fixative. So if I hadn't, there'd have been even more coming up. A little goes an awful long way. Anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please thumb it up, leave me a comment, I'll answer you definitely, and subscribe if you're not already and you want to see more. Thanks for watching. Bye. Bye bye. Bye bye.